Happy Monday, friends, and welcome to the Managing Money with a Partner live Q&A. My name is Ernie, and I'm one of the teachers around here at YNAB, and I'm joining you as always from Eau Claire, Wisconsin in the United States. Now, before we get started, why don't you type on over in the chat window something that you and your partner love spending money on. It's going to be fun to see those responses. Plus, I just want to do a double check to make sure everyone can hear me all right. So, seeing those responses come through, then I'll know you fine folks can hear me. What do you love spending money on with your partner? And maybe as some of those answers start coming through, I can share them on the chat window. There we go. Hannah says food and camping gear. Love it. New backyard deck. Dining out. Excellent. You can never go wrong with spending money on food. Ashley, World of Warcraft. Love it. I love the nerdy things that the YNAB community spends money on. Xing says dining out. Awesome. All right, looks like things are working on YouTube, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I have some demos prepared for you. We're going to walk through those. And if at any point you have a question about something I'm showing or something that I said, don't hesitate to ask it in the chat window. I can show a demo of it to answer your question. Otherwise, Kat is joining me in the queue. Kat is a support specialist here at YNAB, and she's helped in these live Q&As before, and she would love to help in any way that she can. And a lot of times, if you ask a question, you're probably going to hear from both Kat and myself. Kat will give you the written response, and then I can show you the live demo. All right, excellent. Let's dive in here. Now, I always like to start this live kind of zooming out and looking at the big picture. So budgeting, YNAB, it's all about aligning your money with your priorities. And that's really easy to do when it's just you, because there's only that one set of priorities that you have to worry about, your own. But when you're managing money with another person, it gets a bit more complicated because now you have three sets of priorities that you have to be concerned about. You have yours, mine, and ours. And to successfully manage money with another person, you need to make sure that all three priorities are equally satisfied in the budget. And so a really good first step, if you haven't already, sit down with your partner and then figure out together what your priorities are. And then also take some time by yourself. What do I want? What do I love spending my money on? So my wife, Christy, she loves spending money on our dog, Ridge. And Ridge, actually, it's his birthday today. He turns 1. And my goodness, I think he got more presents today than I've gotten on my birthday in the last 10 years. But I love it. Ridge is a big priority for Christy. My priority, my main one, spending money on my yard. And then together, Christy and I love spending money on our home. So the way this looks in the budget, we have categories for each of these priorities. And we are always making sure that we are pumping ample amounts of money into those priorities. And if you're looking for some inspiration, maybe you've never thought about what you love spending money on, either individually or as a couple, I have a resource for you. Let me put a link here. 84 financial questions that you can ask your partner. So it's a great starting point to start talking about money with your partner, start thinking about some things yourself. And again, the point here, just to be thinking through what are our priorities. All right, once those priorities are established, now we can start translating them into the budget. So we're going to be talking about how to set up the budget in YNAB. Keep in mind, there's no wrong way to do this in YNAB. What I'm going to be showing you are just the most popular ways that you can set up your budget. So first scenario are for those folks where every account is a shared account. So if this is you, why don't you type shared in the comment section, in the chat window there. If all of your accounts are shared, I want to see if we have some folks that do this setup. This is a pretty common one. You ditch the individual accounts, you have all those shared accounts. And if that's you, yep, and I see a number of comments coming over here, in YNAB, it's going to be really simple. You're going to have one budget that lists out all of those shared accounts. So with the shared accounts, shared budget setup, your money is my money is your money. All of our money is going into the same pot. And then we're going to decide together what that money needs to do. So let's take a look at this budget. This is Alex and Sam's budget. So all of their accounts are shared. So when Alex signed up for YNAB, Alex added them all in YNAB. Now, Alex wanted to get their partner Sam into the budget so they can start working on this together. And we have a really great feature to invite your partner into the budget. It's called YNAB Together. Click on the name of the budget, and everyone has this feature, whether you're on a YNAB trial or paid subscriber. And then down at the bottom, YNAB Together. So that is going to send a personal invite to your partner. In this case, the invite goes to Sam, and then Sam can create their own YNAB account and have access to that shared budget. And then once they're both in the shared budget, it's just bringing all of those priorities to life. So editing these categories, making sure they represent them, yours, mine, and ours, and then also adding targets. Targets are how we tell the category, here's how much money I need or I want for this particular thing, and here's when we need that money by. Now, a couple things that I want to point out in the shared budget, and this is really important, make sure each person has a fun spending money category. So you get to decide with your partner how much goes into these categories, and then you're each free to spend that money however you want. And keep in mind, there is no rule as to how much money each person should get. It can be as little as $5, or it can be as much as $1,000 or more, right? Totally up to you, your partner, and your priorities. I know when my wife Christy and I started YNAB, things were tight. Had the 3 boys, they were really young. And so we were just giving each other $25 per month. It wasn't a lot, but boy, it sure did feel like a lot because the rest of the budget was really, really tight. And then as our incomes started to increase, those were the first categories, some of the first categories where we always bumped up how much we get. And I think now we're up to $75 per month. So again, those categories are crucial if you and your partner are sharing a budget. And then the other thing that you can do in the budget is you can play with these focused views. Has anyone started doing that yet? This is a brand new feature that allows you to slice and dice your categories however you want. And so the example I used here is a filter for Alex's categories. So it gives Alex quick access to their favorite categories: spending, education, gym. Sam has a filter, and there's also a filter for the shared priorities. So again, just a really easy way for you and your partner to look at the budget a little bit differently, and for each person to look at the budget exactly the way they want to look at it. Okay, with the shared budget here, when money comes in, whether it's from you or your partner, you're going to decide together what that money needs to do in the budget. And then you are both free to record or import your own spending from your computer or your mobile device. Some other things that you will need to be thinking about with this setup: who's going to do the reconciliation? Who's going to make sure that the YNAB amounts match the bank amounts? And who's going to roll with the punches, right? Who's going to be changing money, moving it from one category to another? And keep in mind, too, there is no ideal way to split up these budgeting duties. It varies couple to couple. So it could be 50-50. It could be 95-5 like it is with Christy and myself. I'm the budget nerd. I love doing this stuff. And so I pretty much do all of it. And Christy is just entering her spending along the way. One of the benefits of the shared accounts, shared budget setup is that it's the simplest. And it's the simplest because there's the fewest moving parts. The account structure is simple and there's only one budget that you have to manage. And I like this simple approach because it allows you and your partner to focus on really what's important, your money and what you want it to do. The downside of this setup is that the priorities tend to lean towards the budget nerd. So if this is like a 95-5 kind of setup like Christy and I have, be careful. The categories and the amounts in those categories might be skewed towards you, that budget nerd. And so you're going to have to be very intentional. You're going to have to be very intentional about bringing your partner's priorities into the budget and making sure they're adequately funded. All right, friends, let me pause right there. So for those folks that have the shared accounts and are going to be using that shared setup, what questions do you have? Oh, here's a good one. Sandra, I've got a question regarding who budgets. Can this also work if my partner isn't interested in this at all and doesn't want me to talk about money? This particular setup, Sandra, it will work just fine because all of the accounts are shared. So you both have access to those accounts. So you would have access to all of them in YNAB, and you can do all of the planning and all of the record keeping associated with budgeting. Absolutely. And then when you start making those massive gains on your goals, whether you're paying off debt or trying to save money, your partner might start to notice some of the things that are happening, and they might get a little bit more interested in budgeting. Sometimes that happens. All right, excellent. So let's go now to the other end of that spectrum where there are no shared accounts. Maybe all the accounts are separate. So, do we have any folks who you and your partner have all separate accounts? Yeah, just type separate in the chat window if that is you. And some of the questions that are coming over, I will get to them at the very end. Yep, absolutely. We should be able to get to everything. All right. So for those of you that have separate accounts, you're going to have separate budgets in YNAB. And so with this setup, you have full control over your money and your budget. And the nice thing is, even though you're going to be having separate budgets, separate budget than your partners, you can still share one YNAB subscription using YNAB together. So just one person will have to invite the other person, and then they can have their separate budget under that one YNAB subscription. So a lot of folks like to take advantage of that. All right, so what would it look like if Alex and Sam had separate accounts? Well, let's start with Alex. Here is Alex's separate budget. So again, remember, this is separate accounts. So Alex checking, savings, and credit card. And they are completely responsible for managing their own money, assigning what the money needs to do in the budget, and then recording all of their individual spending. And then the same thing for Sam. Now, in these setups where each person has separate accounts and a separate budget, they're probably still sharing expenses. So in this relationship, Sam and Alex are sharing the mortgage, home maintenance, utilities, and vacation. So what does it look like when this couple pays the mortgage? So the way it's currently set up, they both set $800 aside. And then when it comes time to actually pay that mortgage, Sam is not paying the bank. Sam is just giving that $800 to Alex. And then Alex is making that payment of $1,600 to the budget. So how do you pull that off when there's all these moving pieces and you do have separate budgets? Let's start with Sam. There's the $800 he set aside for his portion of the mortgage. So now we're going to go Sam checking, add transaction, because in the real world, that $800 was transferred to Alex. So we're going to go payee Alex, category, mortgage, $800. And now Sam is done. They've given their $800 to Alex, and that is represented in the budget. No more money in that category. Flip on over to Alex's budget. Now he needs to reflect that $800 coming in. So add transaction. That money came from Sam. Category says ready to assign. $800 inflow. Save. $800 is now available up top. That gets assigned to the mortgage category. Now Alex can see we've got the full amount, the $1,600 that we need to pay the mortgage. Alex signs into the bank, makes the payment there, and then records that $1,600 outflow in YNAB. So there's a few more moving pieces, but it's not bad at all. All right. The benefit of the separate accounts, separate budget setup is that there's a really clear definition of what is yours and what is mine. And some couples appreciate that clear separation. The downside here is the couple doesn't have a shared view of the shared priorities. And this is especially true with the bigger infrequent expenses. If, maybe they were both saving for down payment on a house or a kitchen reno or a vacation, they wouldn't be able to log into this shared budget and see how much money together they have set aside for that priority. They would each have to go into their own individual budget and then combine those amounts manually. So just something to keep in mind. All right, friends, for those of you who are utilizing the separate budget approach, what questions do you have about this setup? And so far, both setups pretty straightforward, right? Shared accounts, we're going to have a shared budget. Separate accounts, we're going to have separate budgets. Excellent. Let's get into that middle ground now, where you're not in the all or nothing bucket. So you have some sort of combination of shared and separate. And with this setup, you're keeping the personal spending separate, and then you're giving yourselves a shared view of the shared spending. And there's two ways that you can approach this in YNAB. First way is you will have three separate budgets. So there will be the two individual budgets, and then there will be the third shared budget that has all of the shared accounts. So with this setup, both partners would be managing two budgets, their individual and the shared. So let's say Alex and Sam, they want to keep their separate accounts, but then they want to open a shared account for the shared priorities. And so once they open that shared account, then they could create a third shared budget. All they would have to do is one of them would have to, in their budget, click on the name of it, create a new budget. And once they get that new shared budget all set up, it might look something like this. It's going to be a lot more minimalistic than their individual budgets. And the key to managing that shared budget is make sure you only record the spending and earning that happens in the shared accounts in that shared budget. So let's walk through a scenario now where we can cover the mechanics. What does it look like when one of the partners contributes $1,200, so their portion of the shared expenses, to that shared account? Let's say Alex just transferred $1,200 from their personal checking to the Alex and Sam checking. So first I'm going to get that inflow into the shared account. So that money came from Alex. I'm going to categorize it as ready to assign, $1,200. Money's available, ready to assign, and now it's just going to be split 50-50 all the way down. So 800 towards the mortgage, 100, 125, 175. So now when Sam logs into the shared budget, they can see, oh, Alex contributed their portion. Now it's just waiting on my portion. And then it's going to be the same thing for Sam. It's going to be an outflow from Sam's personal budget, and it's going to be an inflow into the shared budget. What I like about this setup is that there's a clear definition of who pays for what, right? You've got the shared budget with the shared expenses, and then you've got the individual budgets with the individual priorities. The downside here, it can be annoying to manage two budgets, right? You're flipping back and forth between those twos multiple times throughout the course of a week. The other way that you can carry out the hybrid structure is you can keep all of the separate and shared accounts in one budget. And here's what that could look like. And you can see right off the bat, it's a lot more involved than any of the other setups that we've looked at. And that's simply because there's so many more accounts and categories that have to be managed. And what I've done in this particular setup, you don't have to do this, but I think it's a really helpful way to organize things, is I've basically attached the account to the category group. So there's no way to actually do that, but I'm just making sure that all of the money, in this case, in the Alex and Sam checking account, is the money that got allocated in the shared expenses group, right? So there's 1,200 in the shared account. There's 1,200 in the shared group. And then all of the money in Alex's individual accounts, that was allocated. So that's 7,900. That was allocated to Alex's group. And then all of the money in Sam's individual accounts, that's allocated to Sam's individual category group. Now, it's definitely possible to pull this setup off, but you are going to have to pay close attention to the budget on a regular basis. So a couple things to keep in mind. I would reconcile these accounts on a regular basis because there are so many of them, and all of those accounts are feeding the numbers that you're seeing in the budget. So you do want to make sure that the account balance in YNAB matches the account balance at the bank. And then the other thing to keep in mind is as soon as new money arrives, so you or your partner is paid, I would make sure it gets allocated to the correct categories. Not that it would be a problem if the funds are commingled up here at the top. It's just going to be cleaner and simpler as once your paycheck arrives, get it allocated correctly. So what do the mechanics of this setup look like? Let's walk through it. Today, Sam gets a paycheck. We go employer, ready to assign $2,000. That $2,000 is sitting in Sam's checking. And on the budget, it's available to assign. So that needs to be split now between the shared expenses and the individual expenses. So first off, shared, I've got targets set up here, so I can just quickly hit that underfunded button, and then YNAB assigns the money for me. So Sam just contributed their $1,200 portion to the shared expenses. So the rest of that paycheck are for individual expenses. So we're going to go down to Sam's group, same thing. I'm going to click those categories, underfunded, and the money is assigned. So I've allocated the money correctly on the budget side. But that $2,000 is still sitting in Sam's checking. So now Sam needs to make that transfer of $1,200 for their portion of the shared expenses to the shared account. So that happens in the real world. We're going to come back into YNAB and record that transfer. And the way we pull off transfers in YNAB, the payee field. So right at the top, I'm going to select from my payments and transfers list There's the shared checking, no categories needed, $1,200 outflow. So the money leaves the individual account and now it's in that shared account. So we're back to a place where the money in the account matches the money in the group. So what I like about this particular setup where all the accounts and all the categories are in one budget is everything can be viewed from that one budget. Personally, I like the one budget setup. I don't like flipping back and forth between two of them. And so that just makes the mechanics of budgeting easier. It's easier to transfer money on the account side, and it's also easier to move money on the category side. The downside here is that everything is fully visible. And so again, if you are looking to keep your personal spending private, this might not be the best setup because your partner, not that they would, but they do have visibility over your individual spending. And it's also with this setup a lot easier to move money to the wrong place or to move money without your partner knowing. All right, folks, those of you that are doing the combination route, what questions do you have about that setup? Jamie and Kat, I saw Kat answered this in the queue. Using YNAB together, can you assign funds from one budget account to a different budgets category? And the answer is no. But as I showed in one of these demos here, it's just recording that outflow in the one budget and then the inflow into the other budget. So, Jamie, if you want to see another demo of that, just let me know. I'd happy to walk through that. What if you have two separate accounts for one budget? I'm glad you brought that up, Cheryl, because I was going to talk about that, but I completely forgot. So I'm thinking it would be a setup like this, where maybe you each have your own individual checking account. So Alex checking, Sam checking, but it's one budget. And then all of the funds are getting pooled together. So again, your money is my money is your money. And together we're going to decide what that money needs to do. So that is totally an option as well. All right, let's talk a little bit about communication and then we can get into our Q&A time where, I can sit around, Kat and I can stay here and answer as many questions as possible. So, once you got the budget all set up, you've settled on a structure. Now the hard part begins. Now you actually have to start talking about what's going on with your money, talking about those priorities a little bit more. So how do you actually do this? Two options. Now they're definitely not the only ways, but I'm going to put two out there and then you can figure out what works best for you and your partner. So option number one is you and your partner can have a budget meeting. So at least once a month, you're going to sit down with your partner and you're going to zoom into all the nerdy details of the budget. You're going to be looking at the spending from last month. You're going to be looking forward to next month's spending and seeing if there's anything out of the normal that needs to be prepared for. You're going to do an update on goals. You're going to track debt pay down, things like that. And then you're also going to spend a little bit of time with your partner zooming out. So big picture, is our money still aligned with our priorities? Or maybe there's been a change of season in life for you and your partner. Maybe the last kid went off to college or you moved or there was a job change and you're looking at the budget, you're talking about it, and it just doesn't seem like it fits with your current life. And so now would be a good time. Let's reevaluate things. Let's maybe start a new budget or do a budget burn down where we take all the money out of the categories and we just reprioritize it, right? We line it up with what our life looks like right now. So that's the budget meeting, right? You're sitting down, you're zooming in, you're zooming out, you're just talking about everything that's going on in the budget. If you want to make this something special, you want to level it up a little bit, make it a date night, right? Make it something special. You can order takeout, you can pour yourselves glasses of wine, you can put the game on, right? Do whatever you want to make that budget meeting feel special and something that you're going to be looking forward to. And we have a fantastic resource for you. Our awesome content writers, they put together this Money Night Done Right PDF. So if you're interested in doing a date night, budget date night with your partner, but you're like, I don't really know where to start, check out that resource. You can print it off, you can save it, and it's going to go through all the steps of setting up that money night with you and your partner. All right, so that's the budget meetings. Now, the other option is you can have mini money talks with your partner. This is where you're just kind of talking about money, talking about the budget on the fly. Hey, sweetie, before you go to work, I saw this $50 Target charge come through. How do I categorize that in YNAB? Or actually, this is one that just happened the other day with my wife and I. I mean, I'm always asking her how to categorize her Target purchases, but we homeschool our younger two boys, and she let me know, Ernie, I'm going to be ordering books this month, so get ready for a ton of money to be spent. And so that was the conversation. Like, it was 20 seconds, and she just let me know there's going to be a lot of money coming out of the school category. And so now that prepared me for what's to come. So now I can get ready to get flexible and start rolling with the punches once I start seeing those charges come through. So the mini money talks, it's just talking a little bit here and there about the budget. You know, this would really be good if you or your partner doesn't like sitting down and talking about money for long extended periods of time. Christy and I have been doing this for many, many years, and it's our preferred way to talk about money. So again, no right or wrong way. You can take one of the options, or you can do some sort of hybrid option with you and your partner. And then finally, I just want to offer some tips on getting your partner on board. Maybe they're not as enthusiastic about YNAB as you are, or maybe they're just feeling overwhelmed with this idea. So a couple things to help get your partner on board. The first, if you're sharing a budget, let's go back to Alex and Sam. Make sure you and your partner both have those fun money categories. Those categories reduce that feeling of restriction that so many people associate with budgeting. And it's really, really helpful, especially for a partner who isn't that interested in budgeting. I love funding those categories because Christy can spend as much money on our dog Ridge as she wants. And I just don't care. It's your personal money. You get to spend it however you want. And I'm sure that feels good for Christy too, knowing that there really aren't these restrictions around how much she can spend on her favorite person in the world there, Ridge. And then another option is you can find something that your partner's always wanted, and then you use the budget to make that happen. So if I had done this right way back 10 years ago when I started YNAB with Christy, is because she wasn't super interested in starting this with me. I was all pumped up. If I had done this right, I would have found something that she really wanted, which at the time was a KitchenAid mixer. And I would said, okay, Christy, I know we're kind of buckling down on the money thing right now, but I want to make sure that you know that in the long haul, this is for our benefit. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to start saving for your KitchenAid mixer. So I would have created a category in the budget. And then with every single paycheck, I would start putting a little bit of money aside, even if it's just $5 a month. And then the goal here, right, is over time, you save enough money, your partner has that money available to spend, and then they can go and get that thing that they want. And the whole purpose being that they begin to understand that the budget is a tool to help you get what you want. Now, I didn't do that right, but I still had a very similar result where I remember a couple of years into YNAB, Christy signed into our bank account, looked at the balance in savings, and said to me, whoa, That's a lot of money. And at the time, it was a lot of money to us. Looking back, it probably wasn't a whole lot. But at the time, boy, that sure was a lot of money. And I think it was because we were saving for those true expenses, those things that don't happen every single month. We had never done that before as a married couple. So when she was able to see that, hey, with this system, we can actually save money and be prepared for those things. Yeah, I'm in. This is good for us. All right, friends, let me turn this over to you. Kat and I will turn this over to you. What other questions do you have about managing money with a partner? Type them on over, and we are happy to stick around and answer as many of those questions as we can. And just quickly looking through the chat window, I looks like Kat has answered pretty much all of them. So thank you, Kat. I'm going to scan through those myself and see if there's anything I can show here. Tammy, it looks like Kat was able to help you with this particular setup for the individual credit card payments. Let me know if there's something you want to see in the demo. I'm sure we can make that work there. Yeah, and just like Jojo, just like what Kat said, would you link joint credit cards that are also used for personal spending? Kat says, I recommend setting up the joint credit card in the budget with the account that pays the bill. Yeah, so then the other person's budget would not have that account listed there. That's going to make for a much cleaner setup. And also that person that pays the bill, they can look at that account balance in YNAB at any time and know that that is the accurate account balance, right? Because it's accounting for their spending and their partner's spending as well. Oh, here's a good one. I find the number of categories gets overwhelming. Any tips on limiting our categories? Yeah, first off, just go through and see what can be combined. Do you have a groceries and a household? Combine them into one. If there's fun money categories, maybe, that's split off like Alex fun money, Alex dining out, Alex clothes, maybe just combine those into one. And then the other option, which Kat mentioned, is you can utilize these focused views. So let's create a new view here. Auto loan. Right. So maybe I wanted to get a view of all of the expenses associated with a vehicle. So I can say auto, and then I want to show the auto payment, and I want to show auto maintenance. Do I have any other auto things here? I don't. If I had vehicle registration, there we go. So then when I'm thinking about auto, I can choose that auto. I'm in all, but I want to get that focused view on auto expenses. I got that auto filter right there. So I've found that with the release of focused views, and maybe this will help Jeffrey, is I don't even sit in this all categories option anymore. The way I've split up the different views, it just makes it much more manageable and simple for me. And so I like those focus views more than just looking at all my budgets or all my categories, excuse me there. And Tammy, back to your question about using individual credit cards. The way my wife and I have it set up is we have a shared checking, and then we also have separate credit cards, though I think we're both authorized users, but she has a card in her name, I have a card in my name, and we just have those on the individual on an individual shared budget. And the nice thing is if there is spending, so if you have, if there's certain things that you are responsible for buying, certain things that your partner's responsible for buying, you can split those transactions across multiple categories. And then the money is taken from the individual categories and it all gets put in that credit card payment category. Right. So in that particular setup, I could have my personal card. I could buy something for Christy at Target, buy something for myself, have it taken out of Christy's fun money category, have my portion taken out of my fun money category, and then have the full amount available in the payment category so that when I come pay that bill, I have the dollars I need to send to the credit card company. All right. Any other questions? Questions about setting up the budget? Questions on priorities or communication? Okay. What was your example where each person had a credit card line item with their name in front of it? I think it was this one right here. Yep. So this is probably the closest thing to what Christy and I have for a budget, though we don't have individual checking accounts. So we just have the shared checking account and then the individual credit card account. And so then with each individual credit card, all the expenses are getting recorded and categorized to the correct category. And then they're responsible for their own payment, right? So again, a single purchase can get split between Alex's expenses and Sam's expenses. So just to show you this, Sam goes to Target, buys something, and picks up something for Alex. So Target, we use that split option right there, and let's say $50 was spent. So first, take money from spending money. This is Sam's spending money, $30. And then picked up something for Alex. We'll say some groceries. So right here, Alex expenses, there's the food, $20. So now there's the $50 charge on the individual credit card. And you can see here, the $20 was taken from Alex's food category. And then the $30 was taken from Sam's individual spending money category. So at the end of it all, there's $50 that's available for that payment. And so now on the account side, what Alex is going to do is just transfer $20 to Sam's checking. And when that happens, it has zero impact on the category balances. So that's another benefit of having all those accounts in the same budget. It's really easy to spend across the various category groups, and it's really easy to move money between accounts. So in the real world, Alex transfers $20 from personal checking to Sam checking, and then in YNAB, payee, whoops, Sam checking. There we go. No category, $20. So they essentially just paid back Sam for the groceries they picked up at Target. And then it all works out in the budget. How many savings goals are too many? I know it can be very individualized, but I feel like it can make us feel spread too thin. That's a good point. Yeah, I'm in this. I would answer that the same way. Is it is very individualized, and so it has to be approached based on how you feel. Some folks can have a whole bunch of different savings targets, knowing that they're not going to get to them every single month. They're waiting for the windfalls, the third paycheck, the tax refund, the bonus, whatever the case may be, to then fund those categories that often get neglected every single month. I have found that if I'm constantly passing over categories and leaving them empty every single month, that's not super motivating for me. So I keep my targets, my savings priorities pretty short and simple. Maybe 3 to 5 savings priorities at any given time. Oh, and thanks for putting that in there, Kat. The wish farm is a really cool approach to prioritizing savings goals. But again, that would be listing out a whole bunch. And if that feels overwhelming, you can do a simplified version of the wish farm. Glad these are helpful. And yes, we are going to keep doing these lives. This is the second time we've done the managing money with a partner. There's a whole lot of other ideas that we could run as YouTube live. So I know there'll be more of those in the future. Yeah. Thanks everyone for showing up. All right. How about we do one last call here? Any other questions? All right, friends. Thank you so much for your time. I hope this has been helpful. And like I said, yeah, we'll be doing these in the future. So stay tuned. We'll see you again and happy budgeting. Take care, folks.